Good evening and welcome everybody in the audience and everybody watching at home. It is with great privilege and pleasure to sit here tonight, this Tuesday, September 26th. The time is now 6:31 and I call this meeting to order. We'll start with our invocation by Pastor Manuel Longoria with Emmanuel Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Ms. Moran, if you will. Sure, thank you.
Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening, Lord, and we praise your name. And Lord, as we come together, we ask your blessing upon this gathering, upon this meeting. Lord, we humbly ask that you would bless our city's leadership, that tonight, as many different items are considered and deliberated upon, that you would give wisdom and humility and courage. Lord, the wisdom to know what to do, the humility to acknowledge your leading, and then the courage to do what you lead us to do. We seek your blessing upon our community, upon our families, upon our kids and our schools, upon our businesses and economy, Lord. And we know that every good thing we enjoy comes from you. So we praise you and we ask these things of you. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Please face the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. At this time, agenda item number 2, citizen comments, and it looks like we don't have any, right, Ms. Pat? Okay. Followed by public announcements. Ms. Moran, you have anything?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Crisp?
Not really. I just wanted to make a quick statement. I'm not playing up here. We're actually testing what we talked about as far as running the agenda on an iPad, so just bear with us. And if you see me kind of freaking out over here, I'm not checking my fantasy scores or anything. We're trying something out new.
Trying to save paper.
Yes, yes.
Ms. Garza?
Yes, I have something to say. During our budget hearings and during the budget workshops, I think the one that took the hardest hit was the council. We had our food taken away, which was fine. That's fine. And any meetings that we had out of town workshops, we have to pay for them. And hotels, food, anything, gasoline, we have to pay for all that. And I the more I thought about it, I think that we don't need our telephones. These are $700 telephones. And I brought my phone in to turn it in, and I hope that the other council people would do the same, because this is $700 that we can save right here. And I'm turning my phone in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Ms. Carrasco?
And at this moment, thank
Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll go on to agenda item number 3. Hear presentation from Fire Marshal Patrick Thomas regarding the Alice Fire Department Child Safety Seat Program.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm happy to be here again on another positive note. Last time I was here, I think we talked about the Education Through Characterization program, which is also known as our Fire Prevention Week presentation. So this year, what I'm here to talk to you guys about is our Child Passenger Safety Program. You're probably wondering what a Child Passenger Safety Program is and why is the fire department doing it. By nature, firefighters I've given you guys all a little report, so I'm going to kind of give you guys the short and sweet version of it, because I know you guys have a really long agenda today. So I'll try to be as brief but as detailed as possible. So by nature, firefighters are problem solvers. It's what we do. When we get a call, usually it's because somebody's got a problem and they're looking for somebody to help fix it. And while we don't always have the answers and we can't always fix everything, we try our best to be able to do that. And this is another one of those situations where sometimes people just have questions and they don't know where to go, and they just stop at the fire station and ask and hope that somebody there will be able to give them an answer. And a lot of times we're able to either find them the answer or point them in the right direction. And for years, as long as I can remember, I've been here with the city for 17 years, and as long as I can remember, people have stopped by and asked, hey, can you help us put this car seat in? And Usually we'd scratch our heads, look around and say, well, you're a dad, can you help them do that? And so that's kind of how we would get it done. And that worked like that for years until I became fire marshal, and I started working with the dare officer. We used to have a dare officer, Maggie Perez. When me and him started working together, we dealt a lot with kids. We still deal with kids, but we were in the schools and we would get a lot of car seat questions. And one day I got an email about a car seat training that was happening over at Driscoll. So I kind of nudged him and said, hey, man, let's go to this training. It might be pretty cool. We might need to know some of this stuff. So he says, yeah, let's do it. And if you ask him, he's going to tell you an entirely different version about how I tricked him into going to this class. But anyway, what we thought was a one-day class actually turned into a 4-day class. That's right, 4 days of learning how to put a car seat in a vehicle. Very, very, very intense class, and by the end of the class, our brains were pretty fried with all the information that they threw at us. But it was important information, and we gladly accepted the challenge and completed the course. So fast forward to 2015. Another opportunity presented itself, and Texas A&M has a passenger safety division of AgriLife Extension, and they were hosting a class in Alice. So we took that opportunity to send some of our firefighters to do that program because we were still getting those, how do I put the car seat in the vehicle type questions. And we were going to these wrecks, and we were seeing these kids that were being hurt and in some cases killed in vehicle accidents. Either they weren't in the car seats properly, or they weren't in car seats at all. So we took that opportunity, and we were able to get 7 staff members total, including myself, trained as child passenger safety seat technicians. And while we were doing that class, we were able to make good connections with the Texas A&M people, and they offered us a deal. They would provide the materials and the training for us if we would agree to be a fitting station for child passenger safety seats. So we took that as an opportunity to be able to provide a resource to our community, and we entered into an agreement with them, and that's where we're at now. We are an official fitting station for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, and anybody who ever has a question or wants to see if their child is in the right type of seat, or wants to learn how to put the seat in or put the kid in the seat, they can stop at a fire station and get those answers. And they're getting the answers from a certified technician who does extra training and maintains that certification. We were lucky enough to be able to have 7 of them or 6 of them at the time, and we were able to spread them out through every shift. So pretty much any time of the day you could stop by, and there would be a technician on staff to be able to provide that service. So we were pretty proud of that, and we became even more proud when in beginning of this year, I believe it was like in March sometime, there was a really bad accident on 281 in town, and there was a bunch of kids that were injured. And some of them were either not in the car seat or were improperly restrained in the car seat. They weren't in the right type of car seat. And, it was pretty horrific scene for us. As a first responder, we never like to have to go to those types of calls, and they can bother us sometimes, especially when we know there's something we could have done to prevent it. So that accident scene happened. The kids got flown out. Thankfully, everybody survived. But as we drove back home from the wreck, we knew our job wasn't done. You see, firefighters, even though the call's done, doesn't mean that we're done. We still have, we're still always trying to brainstorm, and we go to a call, we always try to figure out how we can stop that call from ever happening again. We don't like to have to go to these fires, especially or any kind of call, especially when somebody gets hurt. We don't ever want to see anybody getting hurt. So we got back to the station, kind of talked around with the other technicians, and word got out pretty quickly to the guys that were off duty. They were calling her, hey, just to hear what happened. Yep. Through our contacts that we made through this program, we were able to, by the next morning, have a joint press release between the fire department, TxDOT, and Texas AgriLife Extension. We issued that press release, educating the public on what they could do to make sure their kids were riding safely. We also advertised that we had the program, and then we also were able to call in extra technicians from the area through the network of technicians that we're a part of now through this program. So the very next day we had a child checkup station at our fire station for 3 hours, in which all these extra technicians came in, and we were able to get 41 kids riding safer that day. And that was a pretty successful event for us. Just some rough numbers. In 2015, when we started our program, we did about 12 of them throughout the year. We started like in November. So we only had about 2 months. We did about 15 of them, 12 to 15 of them. 2016, we did about 30 of them. And then that one day we did 40. To date this year, we're at 90. Actually, as of right now, we're at 93 because we just did 2 more a while ago. So we're at 93 installations or inspections through the year. So as you can see, our program has grown. And because of the program, we wouldn't have been able to, if we didn't have this program already in place, we wouldn't have been able to respond to that wreck and make sure that kids were, riding safer after that. Our program has really grown throughout the years, the 3 years that it's been in existence. Like I said, we're already at 90. Our goal this year is to get at 100 inspections, and we're pretty close. I think we'll get there. Probably by the end of October, we'll be there. We've some really interesting numbers, some statistics that I want to go over with you is, and I'm going to read this from here because it's a lot to remember. But another great statistic to note is that the proper use of child safety seats reduces the risk of injury and death, leading to reduced medical costs, avoidance of lost future earnings, and improved quality of life. These economic benefits are an estimated $2,159 per child between the ages of 0 and 4, and $2,606 per child ages 4 to 7 for new seats distributed, and $622 for a seat that misuse was corrected, and that's assuming that 75% of those are going to continue to use those seats correctly. Based on that formula, which was developed by Texas A&M, it's not my formula, it's Texas A&M. They're the smart ones that determined all that stuff. But based on that formula, to date, with the 91 inspections for this year, our economic impact is determined to be $91,953. So those are future losses that our city could have taken through medical bills and things like that. So while those are interesting numbers for you guys, I'd be lying if I stood here and told you that's why we do this at the fire department. And be honest with you, these guys probably, until I told them, they didn't even know that there was an economic impact that we were making when we do these car seat installs. The real reason why they do it, every one of them has their own reasons. I can't speak for each one of them, but I can tell you from my personal, standing there on the side of the road carrying a kid that's been injured or killed in a wreck and knowing that it could have been prevented, that's what drives me to continue to do this, because I don't ever want to have to do that again. I've seen way too many of them, and I don't want to see that again. Again, everybody has their own reasons. That's my personal reason. These guys really believe in the program. I can tell you that because our program would not be as successful as it is without them believing in it and putting their hearts into it. These guys have done a really good job. And I'm the one that gets to stand up here and talk about it, but the guys that really do the work are the ones that do all the installations and inspections and make the contacts with the people. And I've got some of them here today, and I want to introduce them. If you guys would like to come up, stand up to the front. These guys don't get any extra pay to do this. This is just something that it was a voluntary thing. They volunteered to take the class. Again, 4 days of learning how to put a car seat in a vehicle. So I have Captain Tunches. He's one of our technicians. I've got Robert Valdez, another one of our technicians. Thomas Hernandez, he couldn't be here today. He's out of town, but he's also one of our technicians that's very involved. And then we have Elena Tate, who's also one of our technicians. And without them, this program wouldn't be possible. They're the one, like I said, they're the ones that do most of the work in this. In addition to that, though, when we have our events, like the event that we had after that wreck, and actually I'm going to go over some numbers that we just did a while ago, but on Friday we had an event. Last week was Child Passenger Safety Weekend, which is part of the reason why I'm here today, because I wanted to bring attention to child passenger safety. But we did an event on Friday that was made possible through a grant through Safe Riders. They provided the seats that we needed to be able to do the event, and we were able to do 18 more inspections that one day in those 3 hours. We did the event there at the fire station, and these guys were all there. But it doesn't just take technicians; it takes all the other guys setting up cones, setting up tents, and parking cars and moving them around, making sure everything's being done safely. So the rest of the guys that are working on shift when we do these, they do a lot of work in making this possible. So I want to make sure that they're recognized as well. We do have we have a lot to go, a lot more improving to do in our program. We're not done yet. It's not done. We're actually moving to try to move more from child passenger safety to just passenger safety. There's a lot of issues that still need to be addressed with distracted driving, things like that. So we're looking at expanding our program and moving into not just child passenger safety, but just passenger safety in general. We're always looking for grants and looking for partners. We partnered with some of our partners, and I'll name the partners that we're working with currently. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, which is our hugest partner because they're the ones that kind of got us going. TxDOT, we have a traffic safety specialist out of Corpus Christi, Stephanie Christina, and she's been a huge asset for us, and she's here at pretty much every event that we have. She comes in and helps us set those up. SaveKids.org is basically the company that certifies us to be certified technicians. And when these guys get letters from them, they're afraid because it means that they got to do more training. But it's a really good company. Safe Riders, which is a grant partner that we just recently were able to get in through with our last event, and we're looking at doing future events with them. We're looking at adding a distribution program. Right now we have a fitting station, but we want to add a distribution program. So we would hold classes in group settings, and we're looking at turning our training center into a distribution center for that Safe Riders. We also partner with San Diego Fire Department. We were kind of the pilot program for AgriLife Extension, and we've kind of been, they're really pleased with our numbers, and we report everything that we do, we report it to them. And one of the things that they did this last go around was add San Diego as like kind of a sub extension of our fitting station. We got one of their guys trained, and so we're actually, how many guys do we have? 2? Yeah, so we've got 2 guys in San Diego that are trained that are part of the San Diego Fire Department. So they, if somebody stops at the San Diego Fire Station, they can get car seat installation. They're done there too. So we've partnered with them. And then Elaine Montemayor Gonzalez is our Healthy South Texas representative for AgriLife Extension, and she's also been a huge asset. She's a technician that went through the class with us, and she's been at every single one of our events helping us make sure that our program is successful. So those are our program partners, and we're always looking for future people to partner with. Some of the people that we're looking to try to partner with are our local hospitals and pediatricians. I think they have a vested interest in making sure the kids are safe. Our police department, we're talking with the police chief over there to see what we can do to partner with them, and of course our sheriff's department as well. We are already doing some work with CPS. We're going to continue to expand a little bit more on that, but there are plenty of organizations in town that have shown an interest in working with us, and we plan on continuing to do that and make our programs better.
Patrick, I have a
ma'am.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
Does your fire chief, does he know all the procedures of this safety program?
Yes, ma'am.
He does?
Yes. We do our best to keep him informed as best that we can to make sure he knows everything that's going on. He was at the last event that we had. He was at the station with us.
You said, is it Safe Riders?
Safe Riders, correct.
Okay.
That's the organization that we got the last grant from.
Okay, yeah, because when you said Safe Riders, the grant program, I thought, was it Safe Writers?
No, Riders.
Okay, good,
yeah.
thank you. So that, so it cleared up for me. Thank you.
And they all have websites. A&M AgriLife Extension has their own passenger safety website. Safe Riders and Safe Kids have their websites, so you guys are more than welcome to go in there and look. Safe Kids kind of just doesn't do passenger safety. That's one of their highlighted programs, but they do a number of different poison safety and all kinds of different outreach programs for kids, really. But anything we can do to make our community safer and be a resource to our community, that's our goal. And these guys are making that possible. So you have any other questions for me?
I have a few questions.
Yes, ma'am.
How many of these do you conduct a year?
This year we did 2. We were only doing 1, but we had that extra one that we did right after that one event that we had. So this year we did 2.
And I noticed in your agenda item that you said you had 18 families that participated?
18 inspections were done on the last one that we did, which was this past Friday.
Is there a reason why we didn't have more? Did
That's
we
actually
get
a pretty
this-
good number, because it was, remember that, keep in mind, that was only in 3 hours, and it takes about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the type of vehicle, the type of seat install. 18 is actually a pretty good number. I've gone and participated in others, like in Rockport. Me and Elena were in Rockport one time doing
I know
an
Corpus
inspection.
Christi does one, and they usually have a huge turnout on
Yes,
theirs.
I've participated in one in Corpus Christi over at Coles with
Yes.
Driscoll. And that's an average, 18 is about an average number.
And I commend you, Chief Patrick,
Fire Marshal.
Thomas, excuse me, and staff here for doing a good job on this awareness program. I think you guys are really doing a great job and offering a service that's much needed. I don't know how much publicity or PSAs you were able to get out there to perhaps,
So we try to what we try to do is work with our daycare centers or our Head Starts. One of the problem areas that we see is booster seats, kids moving from out of a car seat and going straight to a regular seat and skipping the booster seat,
Exactly.
or getting out of a seat too early. Another problem that came up this year was the turning a child around too soon. You know, they really should be facing rear facing up to age 2, and a lot of
I've got
times. they-
grandkids.
And the publicity, was this, I see that we have a flyer attached to our package, but were these placed in localized areas and in the newspaper as well?
Yes, well, we didn't put it, we did send it to the newspaper. It wasn't in print, but it was on their Facebook page and their website. We did put it on all of our city news station or TV station,
Did-
our,
We did it on our
yes,
cable channel?
we
as well?
blasted it all over
Channel
all
5,
of our
the city's
different.
social media.
And it was on social
Yes.
media as well.
Correct.
so.
Sure.
The other question is there a reason why we have it at the fire station versus maybe
Well-
partnering with our local hospital?
We've done
Like
it-
Driscoll does?
Right.
Or even contacting Driscoll?
We've done it at City
where
Hall
there's
parking
more
lot.
room, yeah,
And
parking
actually,
lots.
we've kind of moved around throughout the years that we've done it. We've done it at here at City Hall parking lot. We've done it at the empty parking lot right
I
across
was
from
going to
here.
suggest that perhaps that empty parking lot, because I know the fire station, you guys are limited to space there, you know, and it's really hard.
Well,
And then
honestly-
Third Street is such a busy street.
Throughout the years that we've done it, we even used the training center one year
I'd like to
to
see
do
you
it.
guys partner with Spawn, you know.
We have done an event at Spawn back when the dare officer was still here. We did an event at Spawn in
That would
the
be
back.
really great.
That was a little bit smaller event. It wasn't as many people. The way we got to the fire station was right after that other event. It was from one day to the next that we decided to do the program. So the logistics of trying to get permission to use parking lots and all that kind of stuff wasn't really there. So our fire station, we have control of that, and we were able to get in there and do
It
that.
just creates more of I think, a traffic nightmare, especially with Third Street being so busy.
It's actually worked out really well for us because we can pull them into the fire station and we're not in the sun trying to do the.
Just hope we don't get a
cars.
call out, though.
Yeah, well, we don't use the front, we use the side bays of our station.
Again, I commend y'all for raising awareness in our community and conducting these community outreach programs and educating our families. But I'd like to see us maybe perhaps partner. There is a grant through the Coles Keep Your Kids Safe program, and maybe expanding on, like you stated, educating families on preventable injuries.
Right.
So that's another grant that perhaps you guys can look at.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. Thank you, Patrick. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Keep up the great work. Thank
Thank
y'all.
you.
We commend y'all. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Consider and act upon adopting a resolution of the City of Alice, Texas, adopting written policies for the investment of public funds and designating Roland Ramos, Director of Finance, and Vanessa Rivera, Accounting Manager, as investment officers in compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 2256. Mr. Ramos.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm just going to give a recap on how we got to where we're at now. A couple of months ago, when I first started working here, myself and the finance department reviewed several policies and agreements to make sure that they were in compliance. And one of the policies that we noted needed to come before the council for its annual adoption was the investment policy. And this is in order to satisfy the Texas Public Funds Investment Act, or Chapter 2256 of the Texas Local Government Code. This act was created in 1995 due to some bad investments, the most popular one being Orange County, California. And in 1994, Orange County made some bad investments that resulted in them having to file for bankruptcy. And from that, it created a backlash for the investment community, for counties, cities, and municipal governments across the nation. So Chapter 2256 added some controls and responsibilities to prevent this reoccurrence. And one of these controls was the investment officer. Now, the designation of the investment officer requires training, 10 hours in the first 12 months, and then every 2 years thereafter. In this case, the Director of Finance, myself, and the Accounting Manager, Vanessa Rivera, are the designated investment officers. Now, the purpose of the investment policy is to set forth specific investment policies and strategy guidelines for the City of Alice in order to achieve the goals of safety, liquidity, diversification, and yield. Safety is the most important one of the four, and that's the primary objective of the city. We do this by exercising judgment and care, and we use what they refer to as the prudent person standard in the policy. And we also use competitive transactions to make sure that the rates are in line and that there's sufficient collateral also to cover the investment. The second one would be liquidity, and this is any short-term investments that are less than 91 days. An example of this would be a T-bill, a government security, a CD, and a pool. Currently, we're investing in pools. One of these is Logic. It's a AAA rated local government investment pool, and it's administered by First Southwest and JP Morgan Chase, which are two of the premier leaders in financial services with a proven track record in local government investing. The next one is diversification, and we do this by utilizing several brokers and dealers and creating competition among them so we can get the best rate possible. And we don't rely on one institution. We want to kind of spread it around. It's like the saying says, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. And the fourth one is yield, which is our rate of return on the investment. And we want to maximize our yield, but at the same time, always keep in mind that safety is the most important and foremost objective of the city. And we do this, again, by reassuring that there's always competition. And then if an investment rate looks too good, it's probably too good to be true. So right now, Logic has a rate about 1.26%. CDs are about the same. It's a little bit better than it was a year ago, but it's not much higher than what it was about 5 years ago. On page 4 of the policy, you'll see the investments that are authorized. And number 5 on there, you'll see bank checking accounts, time deposits, or certificates of deposits of state and national banks, and so forth. That's number 5. That tells you that the CDs are on there. Number 8 is investment pools. Investment pools formed in accordance with and conforming to the requirements of the Act. And lastly, I want to point out that on the last page, you'll see collateralization, which is also very important. FDIC covers up to $100,000 on CDs, 100%, and this policy goes above and beyond that and asks for 102%. Are there any questions on?
Council, Ms. Carrasco, any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I just wanted some clarification on some of, this is just a standard policy that we are attempting to adopt. It's something, I needed to ask on here it says about a timely manner on the limitation of personal liability. I wanted to know, do we need to be more specific in that, or is that on the Roman numeral number 8? Under prudence? I'm sorry. That's under the investment policy. Number 8, under prudence, and then it goes to limitation of personal liability.
Yes, ma'am.
And then,
You're asking me if we need to add more to that? or-
like a timely, and I guess this is a question for
Yeah,
our
it'd probably
city
be a-
attorney.
Do you, well, it appears that the policy follows 22556.006, which is standard of care, which is set out in the government code. And it appears that that's the general statement, and that we've just basically picked up those statements and put it in this. And this was originally adopted, I think, in 2005, Roland,
Yes.
The-
something like that?
The act itself?
Our original policy.
Oh, the last time was 2005, and it should come before the council annually.
Okay.
And so the short answer is that we appear to have just taken the statutory standard of care and put it in there, and then it's based
Okay.
upon, and I think the actual wording is determining whether an investment officer has exercised prudence with respect to an investment decision. The determination shall be made taking into consideration, 1, the investment of all funds under the entities in control over which the officer had responsibility rather than consideration as to the purchase of a single investment, and whether the investment decision was consistent with the written investment policy of the entity. And so what does that mean? Well, he's going to have to follow general investment guidelines and actually be that much more concerned because it's a municipal or governmental entity. And if he fails to follow those requirements, then there are certain liabilities that are opened up to him and whatnot.
And of course, like you said, Ms. Carol, this is a guideline. We can
Right.
do, add things that are more stringent as long as we don't violate the law. But adding it to make it stricter doesn't necessarily violate it, as long as we don't make them less than what it should be.
Okay.
Any other questions? Ms. Carrasco?
I think that was it. There was let me see, I think. No, that's it, because the other ones were answered.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Garza, any questions?
No.
Nope. Mr. Chris?
Yeah, just real quick. You said that this had been implemented in 2005?
Five.
And when was the last time it was that we appointed an officer? Or what is it?
The act itself was redefined in 1995. The last time that we brought it before council here in the city of Alice was 2005.
Was 2005, so
Yes,
it's
sir.
been 12 years?
Yes, sir. Under the statute, this is supposed to come in front of the council every year for two things, for any amendments to the policy itself and to designate the investment officers.
Even if the same finance director's here for 10 years?
Yes.
It doesn't, it still has to come before?
It still needs to come
Okay.
before council.
I just,
Can-
I guess that was my question. I didn't realize that this had not been brought before the council as required by the Investment Act annually, correct?
Right.
And we are using the standard language, standard policy. There was no changes made to it? Did you make any changes?
We made some minor changes, myself, and
Can you
then,
please tell us which ones those are?
One of the changes was made, the initial policy in 2005 listed positions. In discussions with our external auditors, they recommended we actually list people, because they are the ones with the training, and not everyone stepping into that position is going to have the training. So that was one of the changes that was made. And we did pull Chapter 2256, and essentially, if you pull Government Code 2256, it kind of mirrors exactly what is in there, like Mr. Lemon was saying. The other slight change that was made was to, give me a minute, I'll find it for you.
I guess it'd be nice, and I think you've seen this in some legal documents, or whenever there's a change done to an ordinance or something, you'll,
Redline
redact something or add something so we know exactly where the changes were made. Do you know what I'm
yeah, you
referring
redline
to?
it. You can redline it.
So that way we can clearly pick it up, what was changed from the original document, or what we're adding or deleting.
Right.
Just
On-
to
Diana changed those items on there or added, and what I added on mine was on page 4 on the authorized. This is one of the reasons that it has to come before the council annually is because things are always changing.
Exactly.
And the last training that I went to, if you look at number 1, at the very end where it says excluding collateralized mortgage obligations, that wasn't on there. And the last training that I went to, that's one of the reasons that Orange County got into trouble, because there were some risky collateralized mortgage obligations that were very risky. So I included that just to make it a little bit more stringent. And then I added number 9, commercial paper as defined by the Public Funds Act. Some of your pools will do some commercial paper that give you a little bit better interest rate as long as you're following the provisions of the act.
And then just one final question. On Exhibit A, the first page, Section 3, the scope, the city may commingle its funds for investment purposes for efficiency and maximum investment opportunity. I always kind of cringe when I read the word or hear the word commingle. So can you, and then you've listed all the funds that we have. Can you kind of explain
And-
what do they mean by commingling
In the case of
funds?
the pools, for instance, what they will do is they will invest the full amount, but they'll just identify them under the separate funds. So they're identified separately, but they invest the full amount. So in that sense, it's commingled, but it's not the commingling, like
Okay.
the bad one,
I figured that, but I just wanted to get some clarification.
right? No, I understand.
Any other questions, council? Mr. Ramos, can you just state, the city has been doing this or has not
We have not,
presented it to
Presented
council,
the
but
policy on an
it's
annual
something that
basis.
has been in place?
Yes.
Yes.
It's something that has been in place. Prior directors of finance and prior members of finance department did have the training, and they had the authority. However, the formality of bringing it to the council the way that the act requires every year, for whatever reason, just had not been
Correct.
formally brought to the council.
Just so that our constituents know that the city has been doing this, it just hadn't been brought forward to council every year the way it should have been. And so starting
Yes.
fresh and moving forward,
Yes.
going about it the right way. Yep.
yes.
Very good.
And Mayor, they have to have training within 6 months of their
Correct.
appointment. That's in the statute. So they're appointed, and if they haven't already had it within 6 months, they have to have the training, and so that's every year.
Yeah, in your packets, you will see Vanessa's certificate of completion and Mr. Ramos. I have his as well from where he received his training in December of last year.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for that. Okay, council. At this time, I'll entertain a motion on agenda item number 4.
Mayor, I make a motion to adopt a resolution of the City of Alice adopting the written policies for the investment for the public, man, it's small, for the public funds, and designating Roland Ramos, Director of Finance, Vanessa Rivera, Accounting Manager, as investment officers in compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act.
Second that.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Motion stands as stated. Thank you. Agenda item number 5, consider and act upon adopting a resolution of the City of Alice, Texas, nominating individuals to be placed on the official voting ballot of the Jimos County Appraisal District Board of Directors to serve for the 2018-2019 year term.
Mayor and council, this evening we have our chief appraiser, Mr. J. Sidney Vela. In your packet, you will see a letter from him kind of outlining the process, the two-step process of getting members appropriately seated on the Board of Directors for Jimos County Appraisal District. This item is coming a little earlier to you all than it normally comes to councils. There is a deadline for nominations of before October 15th, which means October 14th, those nominations need to be in the hands of Mr. Vella. If the council has any questions, Mr. Vella will be happy to entertain those, and he will explain to you all the criteria as well as the formal process of adopting by resolution the nominations to that ballot.
Being that this is the first time any of the seated council members have gone through this, she asked me to be present just to explain or answer any questions that you may have. I know she included the letter in your packet. I don't know if you want me to go through it briefly, or do you want to just ask me any questions that you see from what you've read so far?
In the essence of time, I think I would prefer if we just go through and see if anybody has questions. Okay, Ms. Marin, any questions?
I do. The process, I'm not real clear on the city's process. Do we nominate one individual? Do we nominate 5 individuals, 10?
Well, the way the law is set out, every voting taxing jurisdiction, and not everybody gets to vote. Right now, the people or the jurisdictions that get to vote are the county, the school districts, and the municipalities. And each jurisdiction, regardless of their number of votes, can nominate from 1 to 5 people to be on the ballot. Of course, the next go-round is after everyone submits their nominations. I have to prepare an actual ballot with all the people that have been nominated, present that back to each of the jurisdictions, and then at that time is when you actually cast your votes for whoever you would wish to cast them for. And the way you go about doing it is really up to you all. Normally, it's done where someone makes a motion for so many votes to go to so-and-so, somebody else has to second it. If there is no second, it dies for lack of a second. You start the process over again. If it is seconded, then majority rules, it's all in favor, and your votes are cast in that way. And you can give all your votes to one person, or you can spread them out among any number of people that are on the ballot.
And how many votes are those that we get?
Right, this year, the city receives 535 votes. Now, there are a total, 500. There are a total of 5,000 votes altogether between all the voting taxing jurisdictions. So because of the way the math works out, and the top 5 vote getters are the ones that get a seat on the board, it takes a minimum of 834 votes to guarantee that someone will have a seat on the Appraisal District Board of Directors. Now, you can win with less than that. It's just that there's no guarantee. In any case, it's always the top 5 vote getters that get that seat on the Board of Directors. They come up for election every 2 years. They come up all at the same time. There are no staggered terms. And
Sydney,
This
when
is
do
the
we
process.
vote for this?
well, right now is the nomination process where the taxing jurisdictions submit nominations. You have to submit them before October 15th, which is October 14th. Once you've submitted those nominations, and again, you can submit from 1 to 5 people, that's up to you all.
As a council.
As a council,
Yes.
yes, that's correct, as a council.
See, there's 3 of us that are new here.
Yeah.
So we don't know. I try to call the,
There's 5 of us that
There's
are
5
new
They're
here.
all,
Actually, all 5
no one
of
has
you.
gone through this,
You
because
got
it
to
only
remember, I was
happens.
here in October at
Okay,
the very
okay.
end.
Yeah.
well, whatever.
It only happens every 2 years.
Whatever, you
So,
scared me.
yeah. So y'all haven't gone through this before?
Yes, so
Yeah,
we
that's
haven't,
right.
we don't know the procedures, and I tried to call the manager's office yesterday, not, so we don't know what to do.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, we
why,
don't know the
um,
procedure.
That's why we're bringing it early, and we have Mr. Vella here to kind of walk us
And I
through.
never
That's why
get a-
I
I
put a
never did
pretty
get a phone
detailed
call
memo
back,
as to
so-
how the process is to be done. But really, to be on the board of directors, you have to be a resident of the appraisal district, which is basically the county, because our boundary lines are the county line. You have to be a resident of the county and have resided here for at least 2 years prior to the day you take office. You cannot be an employee of any of the taxing jurisdictions, which would leave out teachers, policemen, firemen, unless you are also an elected official of any of those taxing jurisdictions. We have had in the past where a teacher in one school district was an elected official in another district, and because of that, they were eligible to be on the board. So there is an exception if you are an elected official. You do not have to be an elected official, but you can.
Sydney, so we have until October the 15th to nominate?
14th.
I mean, the 14th.
14th is the last.
We have a
one to
meeting on the
nominate.
10th.
The 10th, yes.
Yeah, and here's my question, and it's more directed to Ms. Lopez. I mean, I would like to see a process in place where, and I think we spoke about this in the past with regards to our other boards, where there's an application, where we post that we're accepting applications for anyone who's interested in our boards, including serving on this board, so that we can reach out to other individuals and
For this,
perhaps
yeah.
bring that back.
And this is a new process to me as well.
Right, and I understand.
So it's one of the reasons we're bringing it a little earlier.
Good.
Council could very well determine how they wish to have that process outlined. Prior councils have all handled it very differently. And since all 5 of you all are very newly seated, now is a good time to discuss amongst yourselves how you would wish to approach this.
Could we
so that
put
the
it on
meeting-
another agenda and have
Could we
it be like
table
a
it?
public hearing?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. You
But
can-
like in the future, could we do a public hearing, like for those who would like to be considered for it?
You've got until the 10th.
Well, this
Basically,
time
that's
around,
your
we
next
had,
meeting,
yeah.
This time around, but you all can come up with whatever process you want to, so long as the resolution is passed and he
Right.
gets, or
He
he
gets
gets the
his names.
nominations by the appropriate period of time, because if you fail to do so, then we don't get to make
Right.
Nomination.
And I understand that, but,
Yeah.
you know, again, in the interest of accountability and transparency, where we reach out to other members or the community who may be interested in serving on this board or other boards, I strongly encourage that we adopt procedures where we have an application in place. I don't know, I know other cities, for example, this board is separate from your appraisal review board, correct?
correct.
Do you
The-
have an application process for those who want to serve on that review board?
Yes, we do. For
So-
the appraisal review board, we do have an application process, but the appraisal review board members are appointed by the board of
Right,
directors.
right. But there's an application that you,
application, yes.
anyone that's interested in serving on that review board. I think something similar to that, where anyone that's interested in serving in any of our boards could submit an application. And that way, we have names to draw from that may be interested in serving on this board, and we can nominate from those applications.
I wholeheartedly agree with this. I know we're kind of short-timed here, but I think that this is a board that actually has the ability to affect legislation, if I'm not mistaken. It's a lot bigger than just what goes on, even in our county, in our district. And I
More
find
than
it
any
somewhat
other
hard
board.
to believe that getting on that board is less stringent of a process than getting on a committee that's appointed by that board. You know what I mean? And I understand that the voting process is completely different, but the ability to even get nominated for it to be open process, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I knew, well, yeah, to be perfectly honest, I knew very little of what happened in the city until I got completely involved in the city. I knew nothing about this for the most part. And now I'm supposed to go in and find the best people to represent our county, our city, and surrounding area in 3 days, really? You know what I mean? So I ask that I get a chance to get educated over the next 2 weeks.
Of course.
You know what I mean? And go see Sydney, maybe call up some of these other people that have been on it before.
Oh, I called yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to see citizens come forward that would possibly, so
Be
kind of make it a little more
interested, yeah.
publicly known. So at this point, I mean, I think that's what we're all
Yeah.
wanting is to.
And I know that
know.
we short time, but it's something I think that I would feel.
I've seen where cities will post on their city website an application, and they announce that they are now taking applications for you know, such and such board, and they put a deadline on it, they post it in the newspaper, we put it on our cable, and I think that will give us, I mean, and if only one applies, you know, or is interested, so be it, but we at least put it out there
The
and
opportunity.
gave other citizens an opportunity to submit their names and application, and on that application, to list some of their background and, you know,
So at this point, we have like about a week.
Good idea.
We have we have the 2 weeks for the next meeting.
Right now, you guys, if you want to take time to table it,
Well,
Sydney, we're within the time.
Still got plenty of time.
and I think bring it back to the September 10th with the names of.
October.
October, sorry, October.
So in 2 weeks, our
Meeting.
next meeting, we would have to have names, so we need to figure out how we're gonna.
We can do a very simple application,
Yeah.
perhaps name, occupation.
Let's be real.
I've got some templates.
The time frame that we have really doesn't give us enough time to do an application and whatnot. The
And go
TML conference is coming up next week. You're going to have city staff that's going to be there. Your city attorney is going to go to the city attorney meeting while we're there. And so we're going to have very limited time to try to put together an application to circulate around the community.
I have a template that's available to Ms. Diana. You can post it on the website. Honestly, I don't have any names today, and I just don't think that that's fair to our citizens
And
who may be interested in serving.
And I know a couple of the people that are actually already on this board, but I'd like to know everybody, because, I mean, if we're legitimately, I mean, we've got people that have been on this board for quite a while. And that could be a great thing, and that could also be a bad thing, you know what I mean? And the process is there for a reason. I mean, the board is there for a reason. Now we need to have I think we just need to be better informed, because, you know, it's just not something that I didn't come with.
See, I didn't know the procedure until I had to call one of the board members, you know, because I didn't know what to do today. So I called one of them, and he went through the whole thing with me, but it still didn't click, you know.
So I think what I'm hearing
just
as a whole
short
is
period
that
of time.
we're not comfortable
No,
at
no,
this
and
time. So what do you suggest that we table?
Table.
But if we table, then we come back to the next meeting with it on the agenda again as,
Well, from here to there,
And
we
they're gonna
have
be
the.
gone.
We have to get
we
educated.
have- Well, and the applications could be collected by the deputy city clerk or another member who's here.
okay.
If we very simply put one together tonight, advertise on Channel 5, social media, you know, those avenues that the word can spread. And if certainly people who are watching the meeting this evening are going to be aware that this process is happening. And the meeting's on the 10th, which means that Saturday before, we would post agenda. Names don't have to be included in there, but get those copies of those interested parties to the council. And on the meeting on the 10th, bring the item back, and you all can have a discussion amongst yourselves with the applications you have in hand and
Well, the only
determine,
difference, Diana, are these other people, like Brant and Mediano, do they have an application too? No.
No, but I understand, and look, and more process in this situation is not wrong. It's just the time frame that we have, because what you're asking is now Diana's gonna have to prepare an application, and she's not gonna know whether it meets all of your desires that you wanna place on the application. And so then they come, but at least it's a starting point to give you all some background on these people. And then when they come, if they wanna come to the meeting, then you can ask them further questions about their qualifications and why they wanna be on it. But if, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that
just
sounds good. I think it can be done. We have 2 weeks. And if we work diligently, it can get done.
We need to get a process, a
Yeah.
written policy or a process in place for not only this board, but
But all of them.
boards. Again, reaching out to our citizens and, I mean, because in the past, I've seen where, you know.
And bottom
bring
line-
you want your buddy on
Yeah,
the
the
board.
good
or you
old,
want
the good old boy
buddy
system needs to
system.
stop. Yeah, we need
You
to
know,
start fresh.
We need to have this in the interest of transparency, where we allow other interested
Sydney,
parties.
there's one here that he can't serve, so does that mean that they have to get somebody else?
Okay, who are you referring to?
Wolf.
There's one of my, no, as far as I know, all of my current board members are eligible to be reappointed.
But I thought he had to be a school board member.
No.
No, he's
No.
he's not a teacher.
What I said is that You cannot be an employee of a taxing unit unless you are an elected official. You don't have to be an elected official of any jurisdiction. You just have to be appointed, and then you have to get enough votes. So the
So what
fact that
she's
you're
saying
not
is-
the fact that you're not an elected official doesn't mean you can't be on the
Okay.
board.
So if you're an elected official, can you be on the board?
Yes.
You can.
So
any
someone
of
on
us
this
could also.
be on.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
See,
correct.
like Emede here, he's an elected
Have enough
official.
going on.
That's correct.
No, I just wanted to clarify that because
It's like we don't have enough going on already.
I just,
Okay.
wanted to clarify that because.
Okay, so I think at this time, so that we can move on, we'll
We'll
go
just
ahead
table
and, okay, so I'll entertain a motion formally on agenda item number 5.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table this agenda item to the next meeting.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
And no opposed? The ayes have it. Agenda item number 5 stated as read.
You will be getting calls.
Thank
If you
you.
have any questions, just
Thank
feel
you.
free to contact
you.
me. I'll be more than happy to help you all.
Thank you, Sydney, so much.
Thank you, Sydney, very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Agenda item number 6, conduct a public hearing regarding submitting an application to the Texas Parks and Wildlife Local Park Grant Program, Small Community Grant, for construction of Hub City Skate Park at Veterans Plaza Park.
Mayor and council, Josh and I would like to give you a little background information about the proposed project before you open the public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to solicit comments from the community at large about the proposed skate bike park project that's being developed and proposed to be built at Veterans Plaza Park, which is one of our community parks with about 8.02 acres. In your packet that Josh just handed out is the proposed skate bike park layout. There's also one on the wall behind the dais, and a vicinity map that shows the location in reference to the rest of the city, and the star will designate where Veterans Plaza Park is located. The next exhibit would be the proposed site plan for the skate bike park, and that shows what would be there if that park is constructed at Veterans Plaza Park. And that site plan is required in the Texas Parks and Wildlife Grant application. We have to show an existing site plan which shows the facilities that are currently at Veterans Plaza Park, and then a proposed site plan, which would be what the area looks like after our project is constructed. So in your packet is the after site plan. The proposed skate bike park is consistent with the citywide park needs assessment and the 2008-2018 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan, which was adopted by City Council February 18, 2008. That plan remains in effect and approved by Texas Parks and Wildlife through February of 2018. The proposed project is also consistent with a 5-year Parks System Plan adopted by City Council April the 11th of 2013. In the packet that Josh handed you this evening, that 5-year Parks System Plan has check marks indicating the park improvements that have been done, been completed since that plan was adopted in 2013. The one that is in your packet didn't have those projects indicated as being completed, but the one in your, in the packet he just handed you shows you the projects that have been completed and the amount, the dollar amount that was planned for those projects. And the total dollar amount for those projects that have been completed since that plan was adopted in 2013 exceeds $900,000.
How much was that, Barbara?
It exceeds $900,000.
And that's since what year?
That plan was adopted in 2013, April 11th, 2013.
So since 2013, we've put in,
Yes, ma'am, close to $1 million, because there was also an additional 30,000 playscape purchased for the West Sports Complex there on Cameron. So it's about $986,000 roughly.
since 2013.
Yes.
And then under the Texas Parks and Wildlife Small Community Grant Program, we can apply for up to $75,000, and there's a dollar-for-dollar match. We're proposing to apply for $35,000 through the grant program and match it with funds from Fund 14, which was established for parks projects. And we propose to provide what Texas Parks and Wildlife calls an overmatch. We're planning to provide $45,000 in match and apply for a $35,000 grant.
Now, what that does, excuse me, Barbara, is it actually scores extra points for overmatch. Part of the application process in areas where in the past applications with Texas Parks and Wildlife have been turned down, a lot of that was in the point system, either on that area or on area partnerships with other communities.
And there's no threshold, there's no minimum number of points you can get. They can't tell you that. They have to look at the number of applications received, how each project answered the questions, and the amount of funding that Texas Parks and Wildlife has for the program that particular funding year. They anticipate making award announcements in March of 2018. So that's the project, and we'd like to solicit any comments from the public and open the public hearing.
Barbara, is that park lighted at night?
There are lights
There.
at Veterans Plaza Park. We may have, for the skate park, we may have to install an extra light.
Yes, ma'am, on that particular side where you have the proposed skate park on this sheet, the red, they look like exclamations, those are the light poles there. They're from AEP, and I got a phone number for one of the frequent AEP employees that we deal with in community development to ask them about moving them. If you drive by there at night, it's well lit, but it's the older orange light. So we have to talk to them about moving this light a little bit. It would stay on the same pole, but they would make an adjustment to it and probably upgrade the light, similar to what we did at Anderson Park, where we kind of got rid of the old
Joshua, because that
orange.
park is kind of scary.
Well, on the Alto side, I think is what you're talking about, and it's darker there on the Alto side at dark, especially with all those oak trees. But on this side, on the Lucero Street side, there's 4 in that big parking lot, and there's good lighting there. It's just the older, it's that orange light.
Mercury vapor lights is what they call it.
Okay,
that
and
what it
this will not take the space of the parking lot, correct?
No, ma'am.
That's
Okay.
correct, it won't.
It's in that little grassy area that's existing now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
In the packet, there's an aerial photo.
Okay,
The last page of
Yes.
the diagrams.
very
It
good.
shows the project being 78 by 36 feet
And the parking lots to the
Yeah, and
west.
then the parking
lots
lot
to the
to the west.
Is there's not a house next to that?
About 86, about almost 90 feet, there's a home there.
From the edge of where
To the edge of where this
where the
will be.
cement will be.
About, 90
But
feet.
currently, it's a little over 100 and, what is that, gonna be 120 feet away from the parking lot?
125 feet.
Oh, yeah, there it is. I did see it there.
And then part of what we're budgeting for the expense of this would be adding a privacy fence there as well.
Okay, very good.
Good.
So this is accurate? That this house here is accurate?
ma'am.
There's
Yes, ma'am.
no structure here, from here to here?
Correct. And all of these areas to the north, to the east, and, well, those are the main ones next to where this proposed site is. They're zoned for both commercial and residential.
R3 and B1 and B2.
Yeah, I think across, there's some older apartments or divisions there, multiplex.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to list that in the grant application as well. To the north, south, east, and west of the proposed project, what are the uses, the land uses?
Now, isn't there utilities in this area as well?
We've identified.
There are, they've been identified along the South Almond Street easement.
Oh,
There's
that's that
sewer and
gray, the
water.
gray line?
Yes, there's
Okay.
sewer and water utilities there. And of course, there's lighting and then restrooms here too.
Oh, yeah, you can see
across the other
you
side.
can see the light poles there in that picture.
Yeah. Ms. Moran, questions?
I have some questions. First, I want to start with a caveat here. I'm all for a skate park. I think it's long been needed. However, I am concerned with the timing of it, and given our economic situation, and we need to figure out how do we do this responsibly when we need so much other things that our current parks need. I am looking through the improvements that you submitted. Some of these have, for example, in the ball fields. These improvements were back in 2013. Currently, as I go through Anderson Park and the other fields, we need to replace bleachers. There's so much out there that needs to be done that perhaps, is this, the question begs, is this the best use of our resources at this time? So it's a timing issue for me. With that said, I'd like to point out that this is a public hearing, and I am concerned that, one, we are not letting the public know, the diagram. I don't see a cost attached to this. Can we build the skate park with $80,000? I don't know. I don't want to get into another scenario where we submit for a Texas Parks and Wildlife grant for $35,000, and the city's proposed match is $45,000, and then that grows to, $60,000, $100,000. I am very concerned that we haven't notified the public of what the skate park diagram looks like without a cost attached to it. Also, the location, the mayor brought up a good point. If I lived in that area, I would be concerned with the skate park being right next door to me. Are we going to have to remove utilities? Are we going to have to ask for easements? These are all the questions that I feel need to be addressed, and I feel the public, for this to be a public hearing, should have had that information available to them in order to come and make comments or receive input from them, especially those that will get impacted with a skate park. Again, we've been talking about a skate park for many, many years. I would love to see a skate park, but I also know that our fields, our soccer fields, our baseball fields, our t-ball fields, they need a lot of improvements out there as well. So the question to the council is this the best use and utilization of our resources?
Well, I feel that it's needed. I mean, that it's needed, but I don't know whether this is the right location.
If I could address some of that, Ms. Lopez. There is a cost estimate. The layout essentially was taken from a American ramp company that has a design. They're available on the buy board. For this particular layout, the total including installation was $62,776. And with relation to the easements and utilities, the utilities wouldn't need to be disrupted. There would be no issues with the easement. We did check this. This was all done by engineering. They did look at all of this as well when they're preparing the site plan. The bleachers, yes, the bleachers have been addressed for the ball fields. I believe this year we have allocated $15,000 through CVB for new bleachers at our ball fields.
And
The locations y'all had originally
Yes,
thought
ma'am.
of,
Thank you. The original location was Craig Park. I think back in 2008, an application was submitted showing Craig Park. The issue with that park, there's no restrooms, sewer, water. More importantly, no parking. Yes, skaters and bikers will go on their
Marshall, where's
skateboards and
that?
bikes. Craig Park is by West Fifth.
The old.
It's off of Old
Okay, out there.
281.
It's one of our neighborhood
It's
parks.
surrounded by community housing on each side. There's no parking at all.
But it doesn't
and
have current infrastructure.
There's no water and sewer there.
Joshua, this location right here, it's where the carnival usually
Yes,
sets up,
ma'am. Yes,
right?
it was where the carnival used to be. They used to take up the entire parking lot, and I think there in that grassy area is where they had the wheel, if
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
mistaken. But they used all of the parking lot, and I think the big wheel was on that lot.
Right, okay.
And then we still have the old power hookups and everything there from those days.
I think it would be a great opportunity at this time, especially because of a grant that we could possibly take advantage of for minimal cost. And I know, did y'all comp out Robstown? I think theirs only cost $65,000.
Yes, I met with Mr. Flores from Robstown, and we talked about exactly what they went through. They went through the buy board. They spent a little bit more. Theirs was $86,000. Theirs was a different design. But that's how they did theirs. Kingsville's currently constructing one, but that one's, I think, up to the hundreds of thousands.
Oh, no.
But theirs is a different design altogether. Ours, similar to Robstown, is from a company that's through the buy board.
I mean, honestly, because we see these kids and they're gravitating to businesses.
All
I
over
know
town.
our PD
Yes,
is
ma'am.
responding to a lot of calls.
I used to work at the bank as well. We had a lot of issues with them in our drive-through. There were some that would fall and hit themselves. We had damage as well. You see them at McDonald's, it's
Right.
safety. Again, the site location, why we printed that is to show the central location in general of where this would be to the city of Alice.
And I think not ignoring a different type of kid that likes something different. And,
Yes,
you know,
ma'am.
because we already have our other parks. And yes, they do need some work. But this is just going to open a whole new, different, for a small cost if we can stick to this.
As staff had discussed,
project.
this sets up a south side anchor now.
Right.
We have a beautiful anchor to the west, we have one to the north.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
This now
Right.
sets a south side anchor for the
Which
city.
is great.
And I'd like to make a point. I know that we look at this budget and the plan, and we see that we have things that need to be done, and we have been addressing them. We've done a great job of, almost $1 million of doing that. And we have a funding that could potentially be $45,000 that is there in a Fund 14 that can be used for this. And the idea that should we take that 4% of what we've already spent, basically is what it comes out to, a little over 4.5%, and sink it into everything and get such a minimal amount done? Or do we take what could be $45,000 and give something completely new?
Create something.
And then mind you, on that fund, Councilmember, it also there would be a $20,000 or $25,000 balance left in that fund. It wouldn't annihilate that fund.
See, I went out, this is one that as soon as I came on, when I was appointed, that I kind of got all in on, and I went out for one day and talked to the community and raised $1,400. Not actual dollars, it's all letters of intent from different businesses. Just guys that know us, know the city, and know these kids that want to help. This is no advertising dollars.
That's good.
This is no sponsorship dollars. These are just guys saying, hey, Pete, I'm willing to do this for our kids.
That's awesome.
That's one day.
And you bring up a good point, Mr. Chris, because it goes with, perhaps we can find ways to fund both. Why don't we look at raising the funds through fundraising and using the Fund 14 to make the desperate repairs that are needed out there at all our parks, our soccer fields, our baseball fields. Again, I shared with the previous city manager the disrepair. I've got pictures, the disrepair of some of our fields. Again, I feel that, yes,
All three together.
a skate park is something we've needed for a long time, but perhaps we can find a way to do both. And if fundraising, and Mr. Chris was able to, in one day, raise some funds, I think then perhaps we should look at maybe raising the funds and using the city's resources to make the much-needed improvements that are needed at our, we've got issues with irrigation. Beautiful parks attract businesses, attract community, attract events, and our parks are not at the level where I've traveled other cities, small cities with less resources, and their parks are well maintained, well irrigated, there's grass out there. I feel that we need to find a way to do it responsibly and perhaps look at maybe going through a fundraising process. Mr. Chris seems to have presented us
I just kind of
with-
see his point.
Yeah. and
His
so-
point as we can get an entire park for that minimal fund versus, sometimes you have to buy something really expensive to get something nice versus all of these little cheap things. So we spread out this small amount because it's really not a huge amount. And if we spread it out, then we're still going to be lacking in other
Yeah,
areas.
but I feel that we have the opportunity to still go out and raise, but we can dedicate this 45 from this fund, and if we get our citizens, which, literally, that was like 2 hours of work, calling people up and saying, do it. Whatever we can subsidize from our citizens, we subsidize, and then we take what's left over and spread it out.
If we
But
can
we want
raise the funds, I could definitely see that. But I have a real concern with, I don't see any numbers here. I'm not one to say, oh, yeah, let's get this project. I don't have a cost assessed with this. I don't want to see us again in situations where, we started out with an X amount of money project, and then it turns out to be an $86,000 or a $100,000 skate park.
But if we're vigilant about budget and keeping to a budget,
I cannot make an
this was
informed
62,000.
decision here
So the cost estimate was
with no
62?
monies attached.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, again, on that same day, I went out and I talked to a couple of different people that these children, I'm going to talk about the kids. And we know that this skating community is a broader thing. We've had individuals in here that have actually assisted us in helping to design this thing, to adapt it, to make it safer, that are from this facet of people, this group of people. And I went out and talked to different people, and I passed them out to the council and to the city manager, and we'll make them available, because I gave them to Pat, from 3 different individuals, and then there's some here from businesses that I'm going to hold on to, that we got some from businesses, but I'm going to hold on to. But these are pillars of our community, I feel, right here, what we stand for. We've got a letter here from the Boys and Girls Club of Alice supporting this project and endorsing it. I'm not going to read them all. I'm just going to make them available to anybody that wants to ask for them. So we got one from the Boys and Girls Club, a very good letter.
Carlos.
We got one from Carlos, and the reason I went to Carlos is because these cases, basically, for people who don't know, basically, it's illegal to ride a skateboard unless you own the property in the city of Alice.
Yes, we actually do have an ordinance.
Yes. So they can't even go down the street with here. Rex, could you please step up?
I'm going to open the public hearing right now, so we can, because I would like to hear from the chief.
Council, Mayor and Council, it's funny that we're talking about this. Last week, going down by North Tex, going northbound, going home, and there were some kids right there by Woodworth on the skateboard, and I guess one kid hit a rock or something, and the skateboard one way, and he went towards Texas Boulevard, almost got hit by a car. And it's like Ms. Moran said, it's a long time coming, I think that we get a lot of calls there at the post office, there by Mr. Velas, by the Dairy Queen and Mr. Velas there on East Main. The McDonald's, a building next to McDonald's, east of McDonald's.
In front of Bank
These-
Plaza.
These kids
Bank
just, I
Plaza.
guess, they don't have a place to go. And again, you got the pros and the cons, like Ms. Moran is saying. But I think that at this moment, you would have the kids that like to do that. There's a bunch. There's a bunch that just, I guess they find an area, and then all of a sudden you got 10, 15 kids trying to do tricks out there.
And they're
Yeah.
ticketed, correct? I know there was some ticketed at Anderson Park,
That's what goes
which wasn't
across-
cool. They're at a
across
park
the-
trying to have fun, and they got ticketed.
It was,
But it's against the law.
this gentleman that I talked to, I can't remember his name, already about 32 years old. approached me, I think it was like 6 months ago, and he's no longer here. And hey man, I remember you started me out skateboarding. But back then, that was a talk because of the danger that these kids incur when they're not doing anything wrong. But like I said, any rock or anything that doesn't, you can veer right.
Rex, and they can't do it at Anderson Park, right? Because I know that 4 of them were cited out
They
there.
can't, they can't, and
If you're using it down the sidewalks in the city of Alice, it's a city ordinance violation.
and then if you're in someone's personal private property,
They call.
you're loitering. So, I mean,
Okay,
it's,
Chris, Pete, these people here, does it matter? Do they care where it's built?
Well,
As long as it's,
here's the next one. Here's the next letter, and it goes to after they're ticketed. A lot of these kids that end up in this office. This is the Jim Wells County Probation
yeah.
Office.
with
And this is
Jimmy.
Mr. Jimmy, and I'm going to read this one if you don't mind, just indulge me for a second. This letter is to show our absolute support for the proposed skate park in Alice, Texas. My staff and I believe that the skate park on the south side of Alice will be a great benefit to the youth and will provide a safe environment and a means for all of them to show their skills that will ultimately lead to the less segregation and bullying of our youth. Skateboarding is a sport that has become popular in all cities. We have children now that travel to Robstown to enjoy their skate park. Secondly, but they cannot afford to travel. But not everyone can afford to travel, sorry. We at the Jim Wells County Probation Office welcome any type of activities for our children of the county. We believe that skate park would give the young men and women of the area a great new avenue to a recreational activity that many would not take advantage of. What better way to show our youth that skaters are normal kids who are mainly times extremely talented, many times extremely talented and athletic in which they do, than supporting the activity with a public park. These guys deal every day with the ones that we have to cite, and for $45,000, and we have an estimate of 62. So we've overestimated we've basically bid by $13,000. That's more than 10%. Of swing there. We're giving something to our community. We're giving them a place to call their own, and I really feel that this is not something that we should do. This is something that we have to do.
It needs to be done.
Councils have failed this type of kid for
I want to
years.
interject. I had a meeting with business owners today. Those business owners are trying to keep their business afloat. They're talking about taxes. Their streets where they're at are not paved, are not serviced. We just went through our budgeting project. We didn't have any capital improvements, no capital improvements. But we're talking, I want a skate park. I really do, I do. But maybe next year or another year, because
We do that. We do that
It's
every
always,
every council
and it
does
cost
that.
$750,000 to do
There's-
1 mile of road.
Yes.
$45,000
So
isn't
Fund
even going to do
14,
somebody's
just
driveway.
for everyone's understanding, Fund 14 that has been referenced here, the purpose of Fund 14. Fund 14, and Vanessa, if you make sure I'm on track here, the monies that were allocated for Fund 14 are specifically for parks and specifically for grants for parks. So the monies that they're looking to use as part of this grant are specifically for parks and grants for parks, and it is an opportunity. This item has come up before many of councils. I understand the concerns Ms. Moran has, and I understand the concerns, the timing of it, and this is really good discussion for you all to be having. But I just want to emphasize that the monies that are there are not
We
going to
can't
be
use it for
taken from
anything
general
else.
fund.
I understand they're
gonna
not
be
for
taken
streets
for-
or anything,
yeah.
but I feel we didn't budget for capital improvements, and I do want, and our current parks are in need of, what do we
desperately-
need out in the parks?
I would like to have seen.
That you
And I
have
asked
seen,
for a
Joshua.
cost assessment of the improvements that are needed at the different ball fields. We asked for
But you have to
that.
realize that we have to take one thing at a time.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's what I was going to answer, Ms. Carrasco. It has been phased, and in a year, it's just been a year that I've been in the position, and it has, and even you can look at my predecessor, it takes 6 years. These things happen in phases. So in 1 year, in the phases that we've been able to do, is the maintenance. They needed maintenance. That was the big thing. So they needed paint, they needed to be sanded, they needed new mulch, they needed sand and things of that nature. Next, they needed bleachers, so we have that. We have a partnership with our chamber, our CVB, and we have that allocated for bleachers. That was a huge thing. The irrigation is now it's now functioning. We have the irrigation going, but it's maintenance. And of course, it's upkeep as well. But
Joshua,
the big
see,
thing-
my street hasn't been done in 50 years,
Yes,
my
ma'am.
street. I mean, you know where I live,
Yes,
you know,
ma'am.
in 50 years. But I feel that something like this for the kids. I mean, I put my street aside for something like this until something comes up for the streets,
Bigger.
you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, I want to reiterate, I am for a skate park. I am more concerned about how we can do this to find ways to do it both, either through the fundraising process. We have to do this responsibly. Our fields, all our fields need improvements. The bleachers in all the fields need to be replaced. I asked for a cost estimate to have those replaced. The sprinkler system that you referred to, Josh, today, there was one little squirt creating a puddle in the adult baseball field. Our grass is not been irrigated. Our benches need replacement. What does that cost us? So we can have a comparison of what that's going to cost us. And again, I understand Fund 14 is for parks and for grants. But if replacing the bleachers and benches should be a priority, and if we can find a way to fund the skate park through fundraising, my question
We're
is.
not gonna apply for a grant for bleachers.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Well, no,
And we
that's
can't
not
ask
what
more
I'm
of our business
saying.
owners. Our business owners are just
I'm saying
sticking their
apply for
nose
the
above
grant,
water.
but raise the funds through a fundraiser.
We're not going to stop trying to raise funds.
Right.
do we raise-
Use that
how do we
money
have a
instead.
fundraiser?
You know,
And use Fund 14 to repair the much-needed repairs at our
can't.
baseball
At this
fields.
time, is there anybody in the public?
more statement.
There's a public, it's a
Well, I
public
had one more
hearing, so if
question for
anybody else.
Josh. Did we present this to our Parks and Recreation Board?
Yeah, their very first meeting was the discussion on the skate park, and they had all of the designs that were given to me from Robstown, all the designs with
Meeting was that? When
the
was
very
it?
first meeting that they had, maybe
year?
was October of last year.
And what was their recommendation?
They supported the idea. There was no recommendation. It was a presentation and a discussion of it. And
But what was the recommendation?
Well, we weren't
They
here.
It was
just
a
said-
discussion.
There
They
wasn't
didn't
one.
give a recommendation?
They
It was
were
a
they're in
discussion.
favor of it, but there was no recommendation.
yeah.
Well, so they're in favor.
One of
of
the
it.
points, just one more I'd like to make is that we're sitting up here and individuals are talking to the fact that let's not do because we have other things that need to be done. Yeah, no, that's what has been said up here. Let's not do because we haven't allocated money to capital improvements, so let's not do this even though the funds are available.
Mr. Chris,
Just-
you're saying that.
No, it was said. It
No,
was said.
I am saying
I
I
wasn't didn't say
am
you
for the
said it.
skate park.
I didn't say you said it.
I don't think anyone is not saying they're not for the skate park.
Okay,
I didn't say
so-
that. They
so
said they
Mr.
weren't
Chris,
against the
Can you
skate park.
finish?
So what I'm saying is that they're up here, we're up here saying that there are other things that need to be done. We understand that. But this can be done. We have the funds available. It can only be used in the process of a grant.
And just for
And we
that,
can do this.
Done, and it's
We
complete.
can't use it, we're not going to apply for a grant and be able to use the $65,000 to buy new bleachers. Why don't we try to fundraise for the bleachers?
This is not only you, this Fund 14 is for parks
Okay,
improvements as well.
in the essence of time, I think
Grants, grant
we're
money.
repeating ourselves. Is there
Parks
anybody
grants.
in the?
So any grants you
Okay,
would
at this
apply
time,
for.
excuse me, I think we've already restated and restated. Is there anybody out in the public who would like to come forth and speak on this agenda item? If not, I'll close the public hearing.
Jolene, let me ask, Josh, have you talked to the neighbors, to these people right here on Lucero and all that?
No, ma'am, not yet. No, with the process, so I can explain the timeline of how this would work. This next agenda item is only to allow us to commit, match, and to apply. should it be approved, one of the first steps in our timeline that Barbara and I are working on is to have a town hall. To set aside a
Okay.
couple of weeks where people can come in and we can talk specifically to them. They're my neighbors, they're in the next
I
block.
know, I was going to say they're your neighbors.
So we can talk and discuss what this is that we're looking to do and address any concerns they may have, and also to get others more feedback, to let people look at the design, see if there's things that could be tweaked, and get that
Just to
feedback. So
submit
that's
the
part of that, before we even go for bids, is
This
to
was
get the
actually what you
feedback.
asked, or what you were asked of us, what Ms. Barbara was asked of us last time is, come before us before you apply for a grant.
Which
So
is
that
what
we-
they're doing.
Because, which is last time, there was a little bit of, pressure on you, hey, make sure that you come before council before you apply for a grant, and that's what this next agenda item is, correct? Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, so at this
I
time.
can go over there and skate, and I can walk over there and skate, right?
Yes,
I'm so close
Right
to
there
it.
with you.
Okay, so at this time, we're closing the public hearing because there's nobody who would like to speak on this, and I'll entertain a motion on agenda item number 6.
Mayor, I make a motion.
Okay? Yeah.
It's a
No, no,
public hearing.
no,
No,
number 7, I'm sorry, number 7.
So, number 7, I'm sorry,
Open
next one.
7.
Okay. Next one. Sorry, agenda item number 7, consider and act upon adopting a resolution of the City of Alice, Texas, hereinafter referred to as applicant, designating the interim city manager as being responsible for, acting for, and on behalf of the applicant in dealing with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, authorizing the interim city manager to submit the application and to sign all related program documents, including a grant agreement if funds are awarded. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt a resolution to allow the city, interim city manager, to be responsible in behalf of the applicant in dealing with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department in submitting the application and signing all related program documents, including the grant application.
Thank you. Can I get a
I
second?
second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed? Okay, so the ayes have it.
Now we can
Agenda
vote.
items,
We're still deliberating here.
We voted.
Oh,
Did you vote?
yeah.
No,
I
didn't.
said aye.
You said
Yes, she
aye?
said aye.
okay.
Again?
Okay,
the reasons
going on to
stated,
agenda item number 7.
Document.
Nay. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Agenda item number 8, consider and act upon adopting an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Alice, Texas, authorizing and allowing the act governing the Texas Municipal Retirement System updated service credits on an annual basis for service performed by qualifying member of such system who at the effective date of the allowance are members of the City of Alice, providing for an increased prior and current service annuities for retirees and beneficiaries of deceased retirees of the city, and establishing the effective date of January 1st, 2018 as the effective date of the ordinance.
Mayor and council, as part of the process of finishing up the changes that we have proposed for retirement benefits, this is the ordinance, this is the model ordinance that TMRS has sent to us for approval. As you all recall, one of the changes we made was to the updated service credit, taking that from 100% to 75%, and the annuity increases to retirees down to 30%. The ordinance in your packet has been drafted by TMRS to reflect these changes. These changes will go into effect on January 1st of 2018. And for it to be formalized, the ordinance does need to be adopted by the council and submitted to TMRS no later than December 31st of this year.
Okay. Council, any questions? Ms. Carrasco? Ms. Garza?
No.
Mr. Crisp? Ms. Moran?
No.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion on agenda item number 8.
I move that we accept agenda number 8 as read,
Okay.
or as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I carry forward my no,
Excuse
I
me?
carry forward my nay.
Nay?
This is the same one I voted against in the beginning.
Okay. So the ayes have it, majority rules. Agenda item number 8 stands as stated. Is it fine like that, Mr. Lemon, or do I have to reread it?
It's fine.
Okay. Agenda item number 9, consider and act upon amending or repealing ordinance number 2033, an ordinance of the City of Alice regarding the right to place items on the agenda for meeting of the City Council adopted on April 14th, 2016. Okay, Council, Ms. Moran, any questions or comments? Or?
Yeah, I asked this to be put on the agenda because I felt that it it places a burden on the council to have someone co-sponsor an agenda item.
Yes, ma'am.
I know in the past Diana has had to also take time from her work to look for someone to co-sponsor an agenda item. I really don't see the purpose of having passed such an ordinance. I feel that we as council members, as elected officials, should be able to bring something for consideration to be placed on the agenda without having to go and look for someone to co-sponsor it. Plus, the perception out there that it gives is, we're having to reach out to another council member to sponsor this. So I felt that we either amend it to allow or repeal it. I wasn't sure. I think that would be for our city attorney to advise us on what would be the best way to approach this.
It would depend on which changes you want to make. When Diana initially spoke to me about it, she was kind of touchy-feely about what changes you want to make to it. And it's a discussion item. If you don't want to take any action tonight, that's fine. It can give us some instruction on how to prepare the ordinance, whether you want to repeal and replace or whether you simply want to amend. And some of the specifics in regards to how you would like to amend the ordinance or replace it.
Well, my recommendation was that we just repeal it entirely and just allow us as elected officials to bring an agenda item for consideration to be placed on the next agenda.
Okay. Ms. Carrasco, you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Ms. Garza?
No.
Okay. Mr. Crisp?
I'm just going to make a statement here. I wasn't on when this one was done, but I did do a little bit of research, and it seemed like before they passed this one, within that short time frame, there was about 70, no, I'm sorry, that was a total, 72. But there was about 51, if I'm not mistaken, I think is what the count was, items that were placed on the agenda by a single person that were tabled.
50.
Yeah, so that's one of the things, and that's what I'm on both sides of this one because I completely understand and I respect the people that are up here for putting things on the agenda item, but it also gives a level of security to say that there is support for what you're bringing forward. So I'm on the fence on this one. I really do see it from both sides because again, if I want to talk about something, I want to talk about something. But then again, if I have no support, I'm wasting our time.
Well, but, I mean, to me, going back to what Ms. Moran said, it's like, okay, they've already spoken, they already know that it's a done deal for them to, I don't find it's right for us to do that. Before a meeting, we're not even supposed to discuss, and there you're discussing. So, to me, I think if we all had, and myself included, had the ability to at least be able to put something on the agenda without having to ask permission.
Well, the truth be known is you should actually be the person that everybody approaches because everybody can talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to an agenda item, you're the one that everybody should be approaching as a secondary.
But yet I have least ability.
Yes.
Because of the way the ordinance was written.
Yeah.
At the time.
Well, no, it's still mayor and one council member. It's the same as us getting council member and one council member. So it's the same thing. And like I said, I'm really on both sides of this because I trust that the council that we have will bring forward things that need to be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I think,
I'm really on the fence.
Diane,
I
I'm
could
sorry, but
go
we
either
would
way
put
on
the
this.
burden on you to be able to decipher, what would go on and so that we don't have so much. And then we as council would have to commit to the week, a deadline, and.
We have to give a full deadline.
And we
because
would
this is
have
gonna
to
be bigger.
understand that anything after would not be accepted and would have to be pushed forward to another meeting.
Mm-hmm. And I think historically, this council has, and I may be speaking out of line here, but I think, given previous agendas, I haven't seen that to be a big problem that you're raising, Mr. Crisp. I can't speak for previous councils, but I really think this doesn't create an undue burden on
The honest
on
truth
the
is.
mayor or the city manager, because
You
I
would-
think we have
I would
shown
do it.
historically that we'll bring an agenda item that is either deadline-driven, or if it's not, I think that we can all understand that perhaps it can wait for the next regularly scheduled meeting.
But the honest truth is that we wouldn't see that, because you do have the support of somebody else that's co-sponsoring that item. So you would never see it where one person really walks in, the lone gunman, you know what I mean? So that's why I say I'm on the fence. I can go either way on this. I trust the council that we have before us, but it's one of those deals where these things could get very thick, very quick. So, and it's not like, I dedicate my evening to it. I dedicate my month to it. I dedicate my weeks to it. Nights, it's there. My I don't know, 7th or 8th job. I don't know what this is anymore, but you know what I mean? It's one of those deals where you just do it because it's where we're supposed to be
Part
right
of
now.
a
Yeah.
Public officials'
Well,
responsibilities.
it's part of our public service. It's part of our public service. It's
Okay.
what I was elected to
So
do.
I guess at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Before you take a motion, I'd like to in this ordinance, I'd like to see it adapted or changed to give the limitation of time, to enforce that, because we need to have that ability for these things to be built.
The draft amended that's in front of you, there were 3 proposed changes. First was to Section 2, which would allow the mayor, any member of the council, or the city manager to place something on the agenda, and that's changing from what is currently on the ordinance. Section 3 is that they direct their request to the city clerk, and there is some italicized language, that the request for item be submitted to the city clerk no later than 1 week before the regular meeting date. And that's yes, ma'am, that's to allow staff enough time to pull information, to properly be prepared, run it through legal, and more importantly, post with enough time to get that supplemental information in the packets to the council. Section 4, there is no proposed change to that. If you all would entertain the idea of whoever's requesting that item to continue to place their name on the agenda, that would help, maybe in the sense that we know where it's coming from, and, where the lead will be there. Those are the only changes in that draft ordinance.
That looks good to me. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to make a motion to consider and act upon adopting the ordinance with the amendments as submitted. Is that correct?
Yeah, amending the ordinance number to
Amending the
say,
ordinance as submitted, or what, Mr.?
Okay.
uh,
Now, and this is where, is because you were talking about simple repeal. Okay.
Because that's why I'm
That-
asking, amending or repealing?
With the ordinance is that you want to adopt the ordinance and repeal the prior, or adopt this ordinance and amend the prior ordinance, where you have to put specific active language in the ordinance that amends prior, what is it, 233?
2033.
So should-
2033.
So should we make a motion to have
amend.
council
Or
amend
actually-
it and bring it back to us?
Actually, we could repeal it and replace it with this ordinance.
Okay.
Because
That's
Diana,
perfect.
and really all we have to do in this ordinance, you just have to make a motion to repeal
Ordinance number 2033.
and replace it with,
Ordinance,
Ordinance as presented?
Ordinance is
With the
presented. We
ordinance.
haven't
Because there's
given
no
a
number
yet.
until it's-
yeah, I was
until
going
it's
to say, we don't have a
signed.
number here.
Okay.
Will that work?
and then, yes, and that we have to, this ordinance would then have to, before the mayor signs it, we would have to put a paragraph in there saying that it is repealing ordinance 2033.
Right. Okay.
okay.
Yep.
Proceed, Ms. Moran.
Yes, so, to rephrase that, make a motion to repeal ordinance number 2033 and replace with the ordinance as submitted,
Section
and with the sections here, and
You could say as submitted under the agenda item by the city manager.
as
interim city
submitted under
manager.
the agenda item by the city manager. Will that work? Ms.
That'll be
Diana?
sufficient.
That works. Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed, the ayes have it. Agenda item number 9 stands as stated. Okay. Agenda item number 10, hear presentation, discussion, and possible action authorizing the interim city manager to submit a written request to the Home Ownership Center Director of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the purpose of evaluating and designating a revitalization area for the purpose of establishing the Good Neighbor Next Door program. Ms. Carrasco, would you like to?
I know Ms. Moran was going to have a
I-
presentation ready.
Yes, I actually have a PowerPoint presentation. It's 6 slides, so it's not very long. And I have some handouts, if you want to follow with the handouts.
Yes, thank you.
So, do we have the, John, clicker? This is a presentation and with possible action to authorize our interim city manager to send in a written request to the Department of Housing and Urban Development for what we call the Good Neighbor Next Door program. Okay, so what we want to do is give back to our community. This Good Neighbor Next Door program involves law enforcement officers, pre-kindergarten through 12th grade teachers, firefighters, and emergency medical technicians that contribute to our community in areas that are considered revitalization areas. And I'm going to go over the criteria of what is considered a revitalization area. What HUD does, it offers a substantial incentive in the form of a discount of 50% from the list price of the home in return for the individual committing to living in the property for 36 months as their sole residence. And again, these are homes in that are designated revitalized areas. And for example, and Cynthia, correct me or fill in here, HUD has foreclosed homes in certain areas. A teacher or a firefighter, someone in law enforcement could possibly purchase the home for 50% of its sale cost. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I know that you all had something similar that was done in Kingsville, where a person.
Yeah.
Can you give us that
It was
example?
it was 50% off. But let's say 100,000, then they were able to purchase it at 50,000, provided that they met the guidelines that HUD has set forth, and they stay in the home for the 3 years.
So so how the program works again is we need to have a designation in certain revitalized areas that are listed exclusively for the Good Neighborhood program. I've had some citizens who have addressed me about possible Border Patrol agents who are currently living in Heronville, who would like to live closer to their work site and would like to come to Alice. And if we had a program like this, they would be very interested in it. And again, it would be in neighborhoods that meet certain eligibility criteria, and I'll go over those in a minute. We've already talked about who meets that. And it requires a second mortgage and a note, basically just saying that you will occupy the house for 3 years. Let's see. So how do you, the revitalization area designation basically is areas that are in neighborhoods with very low income, low home ownership, or disproportionately high concentration of delinquent or foreclosed properties. Those are the 3 criteria to be designated a revitalized area designation. If we designate certain census tracts that meet these 3 criteria, the potential for teachers, law enforcement, firefighters can purchase the cost of the home, the sale of the house for 50% less. Again, very low income areas, high concentration of eligible assets. In other words, there needs to be foreclosure homes, HUD foreclosure homes in that area. And low home ownership rate where people don't own their homes. They're either renting or can't afford the home, so they're living with parents or, so those are the three criterias. And what is required for us to ask for a revitalization area designation is basically authorizing our city manager to submit a written request to the Home Occupancy Center, which is, for our area, for Texas, is the Denver office of HUD. And we would submit a written request for them to consider certain census tracts in our city and designate them as revitalized areas. So that would then make us eligible for some of our law enforcement, firefighters, teachers, to purchase homes at 50% less the sale price.
Yolanda, this would be only HUD homes?
Yes, HUD foreclosed homes, correct, Cynthia?
Yes, only HUD homes.
Only HUD? And how do you know about the houses? I mean, how do you find?
There is a website that they would, a person who is interested, and it's on there, a person who is interested in purchasing a home under the revitalized designation area can go in, and they post those homes for 7 days, and you can submit your bid. So there is a bidding process. And of course, it goes to the lowest, the highest bidder. And it's up there, it's on there for 7 days.
Okay, and how do you let the people know? I mean, how do these people know?
Through realtors.
Realtors
Will have part of the information on this program. Realtors can help potential buyers into these types of programs. This is probably where something you can probably fill this in.
There's a website that HUD has.
Hold on the mic.
Huh?
The mic. This is important stuff here. Get it.
HUD has a website for the homes that are under foreclosure, and they usually have the designation on the side that says it qualifies for the good neighbor next door. And you only could go through a realtor, and they would help you and assist you through that process.
How often does this designation actually go through? I mean, we are in bad shape. We have had a lot of foreclosures in our area. Last I talked to somebody was like 4 months ago, and it was already at 82 for the year. You know, or something, if I'm not mistaken, 72 or 82 for the year. It was a crazy number, and you're thinking, how do we not qualify for this? But how often does a neighborhood actually qualify for something like this? Because that's a huge discount for HUD to actually go in and chop out from under the price. So I'm sure that there's some stringent weight put on how when they decide to give somebody this
Well,
grant.
the purpose is to revitalize a neighborhood, so that's why they offer these. And not all neighborhoods qualify, so we have to meet that criteria.
So going through that criteria and all of that, who would be the one determining this neighborhood or that neighborhood? Would it
HUD
be?
does.
HUD
Actually,
does.
HUD.
The Home Occupancy Center has a director, and in our case, Texas is located in Denver. Once we submit the written request, the director then directs its staff to review our community and designate certain census tracts that meet the criteria that we discussed in the presentation. It is a great opportunity.
Fair
Sounds
enough.
like
And it
great.
sounds
to our
very fair
community.
and
And it's to revitalize certain areas. It doesn't
Absolutely.
cost us anything. It's just a written, once we authorize it, or if you choose to authorize the city manager, HUD will notify us within 60 days if there's any areas that do meet the qualifying criteria.
that's fabulous. Any other questions, council?
It's a longer process than a regular traditional
imagine,
sale.
yeah.
yeah.
But it's not bad, though.
I mean, even
Not
if it's bad, for
Yeah.
half the value, for half
For
the
half.
price, you go through it.
It's a
And
good
we're
program.
giving good people a good chance to do something good and
Again, I was
have the American dream, own a house.
I was approached by, some law enforcement interested individuals. And again, they would be, part of our community policing and living in areas where, you've got teachers, law enforcement living in there.
Absolutely. I'll entertain a motion.
So, Mayor, I move that we authorize our interim city manager to submit a written request to the Home Ownership Center Director of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the purpose of evaluating and designating a revitalization area for the purpose of establishing the Good Neighbor Next Door program.
Very good. Can I get a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion stands as stated. Very good.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, now we are going to agenda item number 11. The city council will enter into closed executive session for the following matters. 11A, Government Code 551.074 and Government Code 551.071, attorney consultation to engage in a private consultation with its attorney on a matter in which the attorney has a duty to provide confidential and privileged legal advice relating to the following matters: legal advice and counsel relating to the city's rights, duties, privileges, and obligations in connection with the position of airport manager. 11B, Government Code 551.074, city manager position or city manager interim position, review, deliberate, and discuss the process for hiring and/or contracting with a qualified candidate for the position of city manager or interim city manager, including revisions to the position description for the city manager position and search process for selection of city manager, establishing a salary range, possible contractual terms, and duration to hire. At this time, it's at 8:26, and council will go into closed session.